From Mitchell Street to the Third Ward, Milwaukee's streets hold memory like tree rings, revealing who moved, who stayed, and who risked crossing every day. Tonight, we read those rings together.
I grew up taking the 19 to Mitchell, where gift shops and panaderias shared sidewalk space with kids learning to look twice. The curb felt like a line between celebration and hazard.
And the Third Ward, where warehouse ghosts became lofts, changed more than views. It changed how feet, bikes, buses, and delivery vans argue over the same 20 feet of pavement.
Why now? Because recovery and densification are pounding at the curb, and every design choice either shares space generously or hoards it, leaving pedestrians and storefronts to absorb the shock.
Tonight's through line is Mitchell Street, a living case study where cultural identity meets traffic speed, and where community-led markets try to slow cars long enough for eyes to meet eyes.
We will weave in Brady Street's documentary lens and the Third Ward's new towers, asking who pays for sidewalks, crossings, and the quiet confidence to let a kid bike to school.
Think of streets as ecosystems. Remove a species, say the crosswalk watcher or corner grocer, and the balance shifts. Milwaukee once lost passenger pigeons overhead. Today, we risk losing safe passage below.
We'll define complete streets, illuminate safety gaps, and share practical steps to show up, speak well, and move budgets like crosswalk stripes, one careful brushstroke at a time.
First, let's step onto Mitchell Street, where the pavement remembers more languages than any map legend, and where every pothole is also a story about who gets heard.
Historic Mitchell Street once thrummed with department stores, then immigrant entrepreneurs rewrote the marquee. Through it all, traffic patterns thickened, speeds crept up, and crossing the street became an act of faith.
I talked with a baker who times frosting swirls by the gaps in traffic. When gaps shrink, so does footfall, because parents won't risk darting with strollers for a conkus.
Sidewalk lighting, curb ramp grades, bus stop placement, small details shape whether a grandmother feels welcome. Merchants can hustle, but infrastructure either invites lingering or hurries customers past like a green wave.
Complete streets means designing for safe, comfortable access for everyone, people walking, rolling, biking, using transit, and driving with slower speeds, safe crossings, protected lanes, and shade, not just painted wishes thinning under tires.
But on Mitchell, investments have often been piecemeal. A new crosswalk here, a seasonal banner there, while gutters pond and asphalt patches create hopscotch for wheelchairs and delivery dollies alike.
Community-led night markets are doing double duty, celebrating identity while proving that slower, people-first blocks boost receipts. The question is whether temporary events can unlock permanent design commitments.
Who benefits today, and who gets left out of decisions? We'll hear about missing seats at planning tables, and why merchants keep sweeping sidewalks while waiting on durable fixes.
And we'll ask what it takes to stop treating safety like a grand season accessory, and start budgeting for it like plows, power, and pride. Spoiler, it starts with neighbors speaking together.
Let's walk the block, story by story, from a bodega's taped doorframe to a school crossing with a cone army that deserves reinforcements made of concrete, paint, and political will.
A shopkeeper told me, we watch traffic like weather. When skies speed, customers stay inside. When a bus kneels gently, people linger, and the sidewalk feels like a living room again.
I met Carmen, who walks her kids to school and counts seconds between gaps. She said, I shouldn't have to plan a pep talk just to cross a neighborhood main street.
Delivery drivers described curb space as musical chairs with crates. No loading zones near corners means hazard lights and risky weaving. They want clarity, not blame. We can engineer predictability here.
Let's define safety gaps concretely. Long crossing distances, missing curb extensions, sparse lighting, confusing bus stop placements, and speeds tuned for throughput rather than life. None require breakthrough tech, they require follow-through.
Community markets have been tactical urbanism in Spanish and Polish and Hmong, convincing skeptics with receipts. When speeds dropped during events, one grocer said browsing time doubled, and kids rediscovered sidewalk chalk geography.
But temporary cones cannot stand in for concrete. After the event, lanes widen psychologically again. Without raised crosswalks or daylight corners, drivers resume scanning for green lights, not human presence.
Who holds power over fixes? Transportation boards, public works staff, alder offices, business districts, and neighbors with data. Decisions that feel opaque often come down to calendars and line items we can influence.
At a recent meeting, a merchant asked for a speed study and daylighting 3 corners. The room fell quiet until someone noted collision clusters. Data turned her request into a responsibility.
Let's be honest. Budget cycles reward shovel-ready projects, not whispered fears. That's why street stories matter. They translate hazard into urgency, and urgency into the paperwork that builds curb extensions.
We spoke with an elder who remembers department store windows and a traffic officer's white gloves. She said, when he left, the corners felt like they lost a species protector.
She compared it to losing passenger pigeons, those clouds that once darkened Milwaukee skies. We keep losing watchers, eyes, lamps, markings, and wonder why the habitat turns hostile for walkers.
Meanwhile, small businesses triage. One owner switched to delivery pickup around the corner where speeds are lower. Another paid for a private speed sign hoping numbers would guilt drivers into civility.
Those DIY fixes reveal a vacuum. Streets are public assets, not scavenger hunts for private solutions. Mitchell's resilience deserves an infrastructure backbone equal to its cultural backbone.
How did we get here? Decades of prioritizing vehicle throughput during disinvestment cycles, deferring resurfacing, and separating streets from storefront health as if customers teleport through windshields and receipts print themselves.
Yet the pattern can flip. Protected bike lanes can bring families back. Leading pedestrian intervals let walkers start first. Narrowed lanes share power. Drainage fixes prevent the surprise slip and limping return home.
A teenager told us, when my bus stop moved a half block, I missed 2 transfers weekly. I started budgeting for late apologies and lost shifts. That is street design debt.
We laugh sometimes to cope. A merchant joked the pothole outside is a koi pond, toss in a quarter and wish for asphalt. Humor blooms where budgets lag, but laughter doesn't patch.
City staff told us they're juggling resurfacing backlogs, drainage failures, and limited capital. It's easy to point fingers, harder to line up alliances that stretch dollars into durable, safety-first miles.
So what moves first? Often, a coalition. Small businesses, school leaders, transit riders, freight reps. If that sounds like a crowded bus, it is, and that bus needs a reliable stop.
Mitchell has leaders already convening. Market organizers are collecting near-miss maps, merchants are logging lost hours when deliveries circle, parents are taking video of crossings. Evidence becomes a bilingual bridge to policy.
Let's not romanticize danger. Cultural vibrancy and safety are not trade-offs. A slow street can still hustle economically. In fact, it often hustles more because people browse instead of bolt.
We asked, who gets left out? Renters without cars, elders avoiding dusk, kids steering scooters around crumbled edges. Their absence from meetings becomes their absence from budgets unless someone brings their stories inside.
Complete streets are not anti-car, they are pro-human. That includes drivers who benefit from predictable turns, clearer loading, and slower speeds that mean your insurance rate sleeps through the night.
There's tension about heritage facades versus curb extensions. But memory lives better when crossings are short and storefronts are reachable without sprinting. Preservation without protection feels like framing a photograph in cracked glass.
If you attend one meeting this month, bring 3 specifics: the corner, the time, the harm. Ask for curb extensions, leading intervals, drainage fixes. Ask who is accountable for scheduling and funding.
And bring neighbors. 10 voices saying the same corner saves time. Process listens to chorus, not solos. The melody on Mitchell is already written, infrastructure just needs to learn the tune.
One last Mitchell note. When gutters drain, storefronts feel brighter. When crossings shorten, conversations lengthen. Street design literally edits sentences we say between doorways. Let's leave fewer sentences unfinished by traffic.
We'll connect this to citywide context, because Mitchell isn't alone. Brady's documentary reminds us history is a long exposure photograph, and the Third Ward shows how density tests the frame.
Mitchell teaches that culture keeps corridors alive, but safety keeps doors open. Without predictable crossings and lighting, identity performs under duress and commerce braces against undertow.
Complete streets are the grammar that lets these languages coexist. Curb extensions, protected lanes, loading clarity, and stormwater care translate values into daily safety, not seasonal slogans.
Power lives in schedules, not just speeches. Knowing when budgets lock, when committees meet, and when drawings finalize turns memory into leverage. Mitchell's advocates are already mapping that calendar terrain.
We heard tension but also alignment. Drivers want predictability, walkers want dignity, merchants want time to connect. The street can accommodate all three when design stops asking them to duel.
Mitchell isn't a nostalgia project, it's an economic engine. Investments in safety are investments in resilience, measured in receipts, worker hours, and the absence of near-miss flinches at dusk.
Hold that lesson as we pivot. History doesn't end at one block, it echoes across Brady's storyline and densification in the ward. Let's cross safely into our next segment.
Coming up, Brady Street's documentary shows how decisions stack like bricks, shaping which corners nurture conversation and which send you hustling home before the sun changes angles.
Then, we examine the Third Ward's 333 Water Street and ask whether curb space grew with population, or if pedestrians will subsidize density with longer waits and shorter patience.
And a book update on Milwaukee's street names adds depth, reminding us that memory can be a lever, not just a scrapbook. History might fund safer corners if we let it.
Grab your metaphorical safety vest. Our next crosswalk is historical, political, and personal. The walk signal is about to change, and yes, we're counting seconds too.
Ready when you are. Let's press the button and step into the next story with both eyes and all senses open, like a good corner deserves.
Brady Street's new documentary lays out a timeline from pre-settlement paths to present-day patios, reminding us that zoning, buses, and curb decisions accumulate like sediment, shaping today's flow and tomorrow's floods.
It reveals how sidewalks once narrowed, buses detoured, and storefronts adapted with stubborn grace. Viewers learn that safety today is a sequel to policy decisions many of us inherited unknowingly.
That chronological lens turns gentrification into a timeline rather than a headline, showing how infrastructure neglect can push people out before rent notices ever arrive on doorsteps.
Meanwhile, 333 Water Street rises in the Third Ward, beautiful and consequential. Every new resident adds footsteps, carts, rideshares, and package trucks. The question is whether the street learned new choreography.
Who pays for wider sidewalks, safer crossings, and loading zones when towers fill up? Developers, the city, or neighbors who pay in time, stress, and the occasional sprint across a risky gap?
Award plaques don't manage curb chaos. Protected bike lanes, delivery bays away from crosswalks, and clearer bus stops do. Density succeeds when the ground floor of the city evolves intelligently.
And into this mix arrives a new edition of Milwaukee Streets, the book that turns names into biographies. It's a reminder that our corridors carry lineage and leverage for stewardship.
When residents recognize their story on a street sign, they gain words to fight for crosswalks. History is an advocacy tool, not just a trivia night special.
So let's explore Brady's lessons and the ward's pressure test, then braid them into instructions any neighbor can carry to a public meeting like a map folded in a pocket.
In the Brady documentary, a resident describes losing a favorite stoop when sidewalk widths changed, compressing social space. That small shift altered where neighbors made eye contact and where kids parked bikes.
Another scene shows a detoured bus that quietly detoured opportunity. Commutes stretched, schedules snapped, and nighttime felt longer. You can hear the footsteps speed up in those oral histories.
The brilliance of that storytelling is how it converts policy to pulse. It's not a cross-section, it's a cousin, a coworker, a corner you avoid when streetlights flicker unpredictably.
Translating to the ward, 333, Water Street arrived with awards and amenities. But did curb space expand proportionally? Are loading bays competing with crosswalks, or did designers carve safer choreography?
Residents told us they saw more ride-hails hovering, pedestrians waiting extra cycles, and cyclists negotiating doors. That's curb math without enough variables resolved. Density is great when the denominator includes safety.
What mitigations help? Protected lanes, physically separate modes. Bus bulbs keep buses straight and quick. Dedicated loading away from crossings deconflicts conflict. And daylighting corners removes hiding spots for surprise physics lessons.
Who funds it? Sometimes development agreements, sometimes city capital, sometimes grants braided with business districts. Beware the lag where ribbons get cut before crosswalks get fixed. That lag is measured in hospital bills.
The ward's politics are visible. Momentum could push for complete street redesigns, but only if residents insist that award-winning architecture includes award-worthy sidewalks and crossings. Beauty isn't complete without comfort.
Let's pull in street name history. When a community sees their story in a name, they defend that block like a family album. That pride can translate into volunteers, grants, and political courage.
We asked a planner whether historical narratives should steer maintenance schedules. They said, stories don't pour asphalt, but stories win votes that do. That's the bridge from memory to safer intersections.
We should be careful, though. Story-rich neighborhoods can attract investment first, leaving quieter corridors behind. Equity means making sure unheralded streets get the same safety chorus and capital.
Back to the ward's curb. Picture a weekday evening, ride-hails double-parked, cyclists split between patients and risky passes, strollers pause at puddles. Now imagine better drains and painted priority. Friction declines immediately.
A resident told us they now leave earlier for dinner because crossing takes longer. Safety delays become lifestyle taxes. Densification shouldn't invoice pedestrians for what design could handle upstream.
Complete streets in dense districts also mean curb management tech aligning with human reality. If deliveries are predictable, conflict is preventable. If pickups have nooks, walkers get breath between bumpers.
Humor interlude. Someone called their block the Third Ward's escape room, because once you park you can't leave without solving the loading puzzle. Funny, yes, but also an engineering prompt.
Brady's film underscores that design values shift. What was once car first can become people first if enough neighbors insist, enough data persuades, and enough leaders choose bravery over comfort.
We should thread anti-displacement into safety work. Slower streets without protections can raise rents faster than they raise dignity. Pair traffic calming with tenant supports and local business stabilization funds.
Mitigation also means measuring collisions and near misses before and after changes, publicly. Celebrate wins, fix misses, iterate. Streets are experiments, but people should not be the crash test dummies.
And about that book again. When we learn a street's namesake revived in neighborhood paper or a labor hall, we inherit a mandate to care for the space where that story still walks.
Younger residents may not watch a feature-length doc, so pair clips with reels, sidewalk posters, and QR codes near corners needing help. Meet attention where it lives, then escort it to chambers.
Who sits at the table for the ward's next redesign? Include delivery reps, ADA advocates, bus operators, neighbors on foot, cyclists, and yes, children. The test is whether a fifth grader nods confidently.
A skeptic asked me, won't slower streets jam everything? Evidence says no. Smoother flow cuts panic braking, predictable turns reduce clogging, and fewer crashes mean nobody's commute becomes a siren soundtrack.
Another worry is parking. But better walking widens the effective parking radius. Customers parked 2 blocks away become customers, not no-shows, when crossings welcome rather than wager.
If you're planning the next tower, bake in funding for adjacent street upgrades. Make the ribbon cutting a crossing cutting too, with fresh paint, curb work, and a bus stop that loves riders.
Brady shows that testimony matters. Clips of elders, students, and shopkeepers become civic currency. If you have a street story, record it. Policy listens when the tape plays clearly.
And don't forget maintenance. Stormwater fixes are unglamorous heroes. A dry corner is a safe corner. The fanciest plaza fails if people slip en route to the pastries.
We keep returning to the ecosystem metaphor. Introduce safe crossings, and other species return: street musicians, slow strollers, window shoppers. Remove them, and the habitat favors only the fastest animals on wheels.
Brady's timeline says change is cumulative, the ward says change is accelerating. Together, they argue for integrated street upgrades tied to development, not sequels released years after night.
History gives language, density gives leverage. Use both to demand bus bulbs, protected lanes, and daylight corners in the same timeframe as ribbon cuttings, not as an afterthought.
Equity check: make sure quieter streets without documentaries get funding too. Data can be the narrator there, if neighbors gather near-miss logs and collision maps with the same vigor.
For the ward, clarify funding in agreements. For Brady, translate film insights into bullet points city engineers can stamp. For Mitchell, keep weaving identity into design asks. Different corridors, same principles.
And yes, celebrate small wins loudly. A new crossing that trims 5 seconds from exposure may save a life. Honor it like a ribbon cutting, then ask for the next improvement.
If the ecosystem thrives, you'll hear it: the slower murmur of conversations, the absence of horns, the return of buskers near corners that used to feel like acceleration lanes.
Alright, let's translate all of this into steps you can take this week, not next decade. Bring your stories, we'll bring the checklist. Meet us at the corner of action and care.
Action 1. Attend your district's Public Works or Transportation Committee. Bring 3 specifics: corner, time, harm. Ask for curb extensions, leading pedestrian intervals, and drainage fixes. Request schedules, not sentiments.
Action 2. Join a Complete Streets coalition or neighborhood vision group. Volunteer to count speeds, map near misses, or translate testimony. Data is a bridge, voices are the traffic across it.
Action 3. Share your street story. Record a minute on your phone in front of the corner you want fixed. Send it to your alder and the business district before budget deadlines.
Action 4. If you're a developer or designer, budget street upgrades alongside construction. Publish your curb plan. Make loading and crossings part of the penthouse conversation, not the punch list.
Action 5. File 311 for hazards and copy your district. Paper trails build pressure. A puddle today can become a fix this season if enough neighbors document the splash and the slip.
Remember Mitchell's lesson: culture is resilient, but safety grants it room to breathe. Brady's lesson: the past explains the present. The ward's lesson: beauty must include comfort at the curb.
Next week, we'll ride the Route 30 end to end, tracking transfer points and design friction, asking riders where the city feels generous and where it feels like a dare.
We'll also bring youth advocates into studio to test drive meeting prep, from 2-minute testimonies to visual aids that turn abstract crossings into urgent, fixable maps.
Until then, walk with care, drive with humility, and plan like memory matters. Because on Milwaukee's streets, it does, and it can steer us toward corners designed for living well.
Send us your street voice notes and photos from Mitchell, Brady, or the ward. We'll feature them and share toolkits so your testimony lands where decisions actually get made.
And if you try just one thing, bring a neighbor to a meeting. A chorus beats a solo. Streets remember who showed up together and who left early.
For all of us here, thanks for walking this with us. Until next time, may your crossings be short, your lights timely, and your corners warmed by conversations, not tire heat.